There are a handful of major titles releasing soon that I know I'll have a lot to discuss, like Metroid Dread and the Diamond and Pearl remakes, and I'm sure my latest video on the turmoil of Nintendo Switch Online won't be the last. But in the meantime, it's time to get a little spooky. Like the year prior, 2021 has been a weird and interesting one, as we still guide through finding some sense of normalcy during these times. I've seen many things occur and have said many sentences I never thought I would say this year, and the latest of that long list of sentences would be that Sonic.EXE is back and arguably as relevant as it's ever been. And that is due to the character finding its way into the headlines of the still buzzing modding community of the indie rhythm game juggernaut that is Friday Night Funkin. But as Sonic.EXE makes its unconventional resurgence on YouTube and on the internet in general, a lot of players are pretty unfamiliar with the character and its origins. However, Sonic.EXE has left a pretty intriguing trail on the internet since the phenomena first surfaced exactly 10 years ago. So without further ado, let's take a quick dive into the strange and ongoing history of Sonic.EXE. Let's talk about it. For anyone not in the know, the first thing to know is that Sonic.EXE isn't a product of the Sega franchise or its massive cast of characters, but of the unnerving and ever creative world of the creepypasta community of the early 2010s. Creepypastas, a play on the phrase copypasta, are horror stories that have been created online and copied and pasted all over the internet. Many infamous characters in horror in the present day have roots completely from early creepypastas like Slender Man, Jeff the Killer, and Ted the Caver. That being said, as the popularity of creepypastas grew, multiple subgenres of it began to form, and in the early 2010s, a focus on merging creepypastas with popular media, including video games, became very prominent, with recognizable IPs like The Legend of Zelda, Minecraft, and Pokemon getting the creepypasta treatment in the form of Ben Drowned, Herobrine, and Lavender Town Syndrome respectively, three stories that have grown from creepypasta to near internet urban legend. It was only a matter of time before the game latched on to another one of the largest, mostly family-friendly gaming franchises of all time. Enter Sonic.EXE. The story itself first materialized in August of 2011, traced back to an online author under the moniker of JC the Hyena, who posted the tale onto the Creepypasta wiki. As the reception of the creepypasta was positive and its popularity continued to grow tremendously, the next important component of Sonic.EXE would come together a year later, where MY5T Crimson would create a game depicting a faithful retelling of the original story using sprites gathered from the Genesis titles. Consequently, this thrusted Sonic.EXE into a space where the lore of JC the Hyena's story could reach mainstream platforms online. And with the help of fans of the character around the internet, the lore of Sonic.EXE would grow from just another callous horror fanfic from its era to an extensive story with many facets. As for the lore itself, the original story of Sonic.EXE follows a character named Tom, a self-proclaimed retro Sonic fan who admitted to not being a fan of ROM hacks after a terrible experience that he had. Tom received a package from a good friend of his named Kyle. It was a disc with a note attached warning him to destroy said disc before it was too late, specifically imploring Tom to not play the game in any circumstance. Despite the urgency of the note, Tom continues to play the game, and what he sees is very well depicted in the now infamous fan game from 2012. From the starting frame that flashes on the title screen as Tom pressed start, to the out-of-place file select screen from Sonic 3 with haunting music accompanying, as he played each available character, Tails, Knuckles, and Robotnik strangely, the opening screens got stranger. The settings got more gruesome, and Sonic.EXE itself got more violent and malevolent. The being would kill Tails after chasing him down, kill Knuckles after tiring him out, and kill Doctor before he even had an opportunity to retaliate. Throughout, taunting Tom with eerie messages on the screen, such as, "You're too slow, want to try again?" and "So many souls to play with, so little time, wouldn't you agree?" all climaxing at a jump scare of the hyper-realistic image of Sonic.EXE with the phrase, "I am God." Frightened, Tom exited the game, but it was too late, as the entity had already got its targets on the poor guy and sat in the form of a stuffed doll on Tom's bed, where the story ends chillingly. Now, there have been countless additions to the lore from multiple sources, most notably a prequel surrounding a detective named Derek Green who investigates the murders committed by the entity referred to as just EXE. The second story addresses many things, including the origin of the entity that captures Sonic's body in the original, how the Sonic.EXE disc came to be, and even what became of Tom after his run-in with the demonic being. However, the core of the creepypasta's lore remains in the initial story, and that initial story would prove evident to leave a lasting impact on many of the communities it came in contact with. As for Sonic.EXE's impact and popularity following the releases of the first story and the first game, it is undoubtedly one of the most prominent video game creepypastas out there. A few months after the August 2012 release of Sonic.EXE, the gaming sphere on YouTube would hit on its first time trending, making the game a trend after YouTube icon Markiplier played it on his channel for the first time on Christmas Eve of that year. In the year following, other dominant gaming channels would follow suit and help cement the fan game as recognizable in that era. Throughout the rest of the 2010s, Sonic.exe and the broader .exe series would continue to spread with the help of a trove of different fan games and fan fiction. Ever so often, some of the more notable games like Sally.exe and Sunky.mpag, a parody of the original, would catch the attention of YouTube's big creators and keep interest in the character going, with the most recent spike in popularity stemming from the character's involvement in the latest mob to grasp the attention of the Friday Night Funkin community. The mod itself, titled Versus Sonic.exe, merges familiar aspects rooted in the original fan game with the gameplay and the formatting of the mega hit indie game, as well as charming references to other unnerving moments in the Sonic franchise, like the secret screen from the sound test in 1993 Sonic CD, and even the Lord X depiction of Sonic.exe based off of the more expanded upon lore of the EXE story and the Cult of X. Throughout the last decade, a single story on an online forum has grown to become one of the most recognizable faces in the genre, whether it is due in part to its ties to the iconic branding that is the Sonic the Hedgehog series, its ability to grab the attention of the biggest names in internet gaming, the hundreds of fans who pour their creativity into making new content with the character, or even the rise in injecting spooky spooks into otherwise bright and colorful games. Sonic.exe has persevered through the thousands of creepypastas that were spewed out in the late 2000s and early 2010s to leave quite the interesting trail here on the internet 10 years later. As we near 2022, who knows what will launch the character into the spotlight next. There's been good press, bad press, and everything in between. But at the end of the day, to truly understand the origins of Sonic.exe and experience why so many fans in the creepypasta space and the gaming space alike hold so much interest in the character, I suggest going out of your way to play the original game from 2012. At your own risk, of course.